Hello everyone, I'm Laura Neal and today I'm going to show you some tips for sewing the front zipper to the Greenstyle Sundance jacket. So the first thing I have to do is make what I call a jig to make sewing the top of the facing easier. Now if you have printed out your pattern in a PDF, you can just trim this part out, but if you haven't, like me, I've traced the pattern. I'm going to use a tracing wheel to trace the pattern again onto a piece of cardstock. So I'm literally just kind of following along this curved line here, like that. And then you won't be able to see this, but I can. And I can just trace that again with pencil to there. And then I'm going to draw just a nice square line, if I can find a ruler. Square to my piece of paper, like that. And then another one. So the little piece I'm going to cut out is actually just this little area here, and I'll show you how that is so helpful when we reach the machine. So here I am at the sewing machine, and I have my facing piece here, and I'm going to fold it wrong side out. You can see I've interfaced this. And here's the little piece of cardstock I cut out. I'm going to fold it like this, place it on my facing piece. And what I'm going to do is use that to guide me where I'm stitching and hopefully not knock the camera over. That's usually a good goal. If I happen to be a little bit inside the stitching line, I'm not going to get too worked up about it. What I'm using here is just a straight stitch and 10 stitches to the end, which is 2.5 millimeters. I'm going to backtrack this first couple stitches. And then make sure I'm lined up, and then just gently follow this curve. And there is my curve. I'm not going to backstitch here because I don't want to create a lump. Okay, here I am back at the ironing board. I've got my facing piece. I've got the top stitch with the curve here, and the bottom stitch just straight across at 3/8 of an inch. And just to help reduce the bulk, I am going to trim a little bit here. Oops, my cord's in the way. Oh, no, it's not. I'm just going to trim it to about 1/4 inch. I'm going to turn this right side out. Boop. Make sure it's folded neatly right down the middle. And then using a press cloth and lots of steam, I am gently going to press this into its position, which is folded in half. Here it comes, everyone. First use of washaway wonder tape for this part of the project. And what we're going to do, and this is going to seem a little nuts, but we're going to use it to basically stick the two outer inside edges of this spacing to each other so that they won't move when we go to either baste or serge this long straight edge. This stuff is so great. I use it a whole lot for this kind of project, and especially you know, if your fabric's a little bit iffy, but even if it's not, this just makes sewing with knits so much easier. This particular knit, it's nice, it's high quality, but it does squish quite a bit, which can make it a little bit more challenging to sew accurately. So this just kind of gives you a leg up in that situation. It's repositionable, it's inexpensive, it's basting. You never have to take out, which I'm always a fan of. So it's very easy to use. No heat is required. You just press it on with your fingers. And one of my students actually came up with this yesterday, which is if you're having trouble getting the paper to peel off, There's a little tip for that, which is I'll show you in just as soon as I get there. Okay. Here we are at the edge. I was having trouble peeling this paper yesterday, and she said, well, what happens if you tear it? And it's a little tough to tear, but she was right. Once you've torn it, it's much easier to get the paper to come off. You can take it off all in one go. You can take it off in parts. It doesn't really matter. That, the nice thing again is it's repositionable. So if you're not thrilled with what you get on your first try, oops, sorry, moving the camera, you can always try again, but that looks pretty good. So we're ready to baste this long edge here. All right, use number 2 of Wonder Tape is to stick the zipper to the facing. And what I like to do at the top here is fold this to the back and then flip this down. And if all this extra material is bothering you, you can unzip the zipper and move that out of the way for the next step. One thing that the pattern considers optional that I don't is fusing about an inch wide piece of interfacing along the edge for the front zipper. Now I haven't done it before now because I wanted to leave open the possibility that if you haven't interfaced your collar, you would want to extend this up to the turn point in the collar, which is right here, in which case you would want a 24-inch long piece. Now I've already interfaced my collar, so that would be overkill to do it twice. So instead I've made this 22 inches long, but you can see the actual fabric has stretched out a little bit from handling during construction. So I'm going to actually use this for 2 things. It's going to stabilize for the zipper, but then it will also help bring this in to the size it should be. So I'm going to start right in the very middle here, and I've got tissue paper in between my ironing board and my fabric, and I'm going to have it over while I'm pressing. 1,002, 1,003, 1,005, 1,006, 1,007, 1,008, 1,009. Okay, having done the center, I'm going to move to the bottom and kind of nudge the fabric until it is the correct length to match that. I don't want it to actually ripple or do anything like that, so I'm going to be a little finicky about how this lays. Oops. Always easier said than done. There we go. Okay, and then for the top, moving the paper so you can see. Okay, now looking at in between those 2 spaces. Basically getting that flat and fusing. Of course, you always test your fabric for fusing before you do this. You can see I have a fair bit of fusing already, so I'm pretty confident about these iron settings. I'm not going to move it until it's cool, but just so you can see, this now brings me in line for the correct length for the zipper and the zipper facing. Now, if I haven't lost track, this is the third time we're using washaway wonder tape on the zipper portion of the garment. It's so valuable. So what we have here is this is the left side of the jacket as it's worn, and it's facing right side out, right side up. And so we're ready to baste the zipper into its position on the front of the jacket using zipper tape. Now again, basting washaway wonder tape. Lining up the bottom of the facing with the seam line for the hem, and lining up the top of the facing with the fold line for the collar. I do want the seam allowance for the collar to stay in the up position when I stitch it, so I'm going to use just a wonder clip there to hold that in place so I don't lose track when I'm stitching which way I want that to go. And again, since this can be repositioned, you can put it on, double check, and then change it if you're not thrilled with how it's lying, but that's lying pretty well. Now I'm going to take this to the machine and just stitch with the zipper foot down this line. Pattern instructions here say to top stitch the seam right now. I personally find it easier to finish the bottom facing first and then top stitch the zipper. Your mileage may vary, but that's just my preference. Now before you go to baste in the second half of the zipper, you want to do a mark that will make matching along the seam line a lot easier. Go ahead and zip your zipper into position and grab some marking material. I like this kind of chalk wheel, and mark exactly where that seam intersects all the way across the zipper tape. Now when you unzip this zipper and go to baste this in place on the other side of the jacket, you'll know exactly where you want that line to hit. As you can see, I still have a few more steps to finish this jacket, but the zipper is finished. All I did was put in the other side with basting tape and stitch it on. I'm ready to move on to my next phase, and we are through applying the front zip.